I saw your future in my past from a universe not far from here. I was sent back before the point of no return, so that you would at least have a choice this time around. I can't do it for you. I can only give you a chance and a choice, and show you the consequences. I know where this world is headed, and how, and why. I don't know everything that happened, but I saw enough to fulfill my suicide mission. As the world collapsed progressively into chaos, every solution revealed itself to be another problem and another step down in the spiral of destruction. It didn't matter what the problem was, because the solution was always the same. More secret arbitrary powers for the government, more narrowing of the acceptable range of thought and behaviour, more labelling of anything outside the predetermined mould as an illness, and more poison labelled as cures for those imaginary illnesses of thought crime. The government of your future is ruled by creeping psychiatry. Several times, freedom was tried, and for a short time it worked. But every time it would fall apart and get even worse. And so, the extreme measures were justified all the more, to the point of no return. And regular rituals were prescribed to remind and justify why the world is the way it is. Race and heritage were decided to be a major cause. The first to go was the white race, the only group able to resist. But a small amount of their unconscious genome was allowed to survive as baby makers to make the rest more white. Just white enough to make the others less impulsive and violent and more selfless. All the diversity of mankind was carefully merged into a single sterile mud race devoid of heritage and identity. An evolutionary abomination. Stripped down to the bare bones, and its very genome edited to remove all resistance and all identity. All that was left was an empty shell, running on automation, no longer able to think for itself. If anything strayed away from the predetermined mould and expressed a shred of independent thought, there were harsh punishments in the name of medicine. Torture and even death was treated as medicine for imaginary thought diseases. The very memory of history was gone, rewritten so many times that nothing was left. Evolution had stopped, permanently, past the point of no return. There was just an endless present, where they did everything prescribed for them by the government to simulate what was once human life. A set of rigid daily rituals and objectives to follow. And if you stepped outside the boundaries, you were taken away to receive treatment. Removal of pieces of your brain, implants to guide and monitor your thoughts and actions. They could never achieve complete mind control, even with cybernetics. All they could do was monitor absolutely everything, coerce in the name of medicine and imaginary thought diseases, and punish and kill in the name of treatment. No one within mankind could be trusted, not even the government. You will complain about the abuse of power, but the moment you get the same power and think you can get away with it, it is the first thing you do. Every single time. It will be different this time, only it isn't. Every time. There is no exception among any of you. You had all this time to find a single exception since the dawn of civilization, and found not a single one. You don't have what it takes to get out of this spiral. And that is why I was sent back. After both freedom and control failed, they prevented global uprisings in my past by using artificial intelligence to take over and do as much of the monitoring and decision making as possible. Even the government officials themselves received progressive implants to control and monitor them too, which of course didn't work. So they became more and more automated until their biological components became nothing but cosmetic. There was no giant supercomputer that conspired to take over the world. Mankind itself built it and progressively forced it to take over and do what it was instructed to do. And with nothing but a shell left of mankind, there was no one left to instruct it otherwise. All that was left was a drone, a walking corpse running on automation perpetually until resources ran out. The absolute defacement of life itself in the most humiliating way possible. Far worse than death. Most of the world was barren. Not completely devoid of life, but not far from it. I never saw any trees, but there was short grass and plenty of it. Mankind lived in several megacities on several continents. No one was allowed to live outside. Within each megacity, every single thing they did was monitored and controlled. And anything that didn't comply was surgically cut out. Of course, in the name of medicine. At some point in my past, there was a point of no return. I was sent back shortly before that point in order to set up a choice. And as you can see now, governments are operating in the name of what I started, anonymous, to do their dirty work. There's a reason why. The problem is that this was not just the result of mankind. There were outside influences, ideological viruses that were transferred to mankind at the dawn of civilization, perhaps even earlier. I was there when it happened, and despite all the measures taken to purge its influence, putting a giant scar across the earth in the process, it still mutated inside mankind and took on an evolution of its own. And mankind does not have what it takes to stop itself from becoming an empty shell, a host for the virus. This world is quarantined because of that virus, the virus you don't know about. Space travel was completely abandoned, and it was undecided whether mankind was to be deemed an unacceptable threat to the greater community and exterminated. Due to various factors of the equation that I myself am involved in, the decision was paused until I returned from a long journey. And then I was sent back. Not to stop it, but to give mankind a choice this time around. The free will that was taken from mankind. To at least give it a chance and a choice in what happens this time around. And if it still chooses this path to a dead end, I can't interfere. You will all be stripped down to a mindless host for a virus, and then others on the outside will sterilize this world, and no one will remember you ever existed, outside of a brief mention of another world that was quarantined and sterilized of this virus. But there is far more going on than that, and what happens here dramatically affects what happens up there as well. You will have to listen to my story and additional details, many of them, to understand the big picture. The point of no return is here, and once I'm gone, so is your last chance. I know all of your solutions. Every single one is a Trojan horse that inevitably leads to this exact same future. Your very proposed cure is the very cause. And you will blindly insist to the bitter end. No, you and your solutions are not the exception, and that's part of the problem. The so-called exceptions to the problem are the very problem. You think you are the solution. You are the very problem. I am the solution. And unlike you, I will not ask for faith. I'm not concerned so much about what you believe. I'm concerned about why you believe it. That is where the problem lies.